Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hello, and welcome to No Summary, Golden Thread's live stream series of conversations with artists who don't fit in a box. One of my favorite topics. My name is Andrea Assaf. I'm going to be your moderator today. I want to say first that Golden Thread Productions is the first, if you don't know, the first American theater company devoted to the Middle East in the United States, founded by playwright Dunya Ghaheri in 1996. And Golden Thread is based on the ancestral lands of the Ramaytush Ohlone, known colonially today as San Francisco, California. And this is the 25th year of Golden Thread celebrating their 25th anniversary, and we should all be celebrating that with them. So as I said, my name is Andrea Assaf. I'm the Artistic Director of Art2Action, which is based in Tampa, Florida. And I'm really honored to be here today as the moderator for this wonderful conversation about emerging SWANA theater companies in the United States. And we have some really fabulous guests. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. And you can also follow along with their bios on HowlRound or in the chat. They'll be their professional bios will be dropped there as well. But today I'm delighted to welcome Rohina Malik, Nabra Nelson, and Shadi Ghaheri. I'm sorry about my my Iranian pronunciation, Farsi pronunciation is terrible. I apologize. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves with their name and organizational or company affiliation, pronouns, if that's something that you would like to share, where you're zooming in from today, and a land acknowledgement for that land, which I'll do first before I pass it around, and your affiliation with Golden Thread if you have one. So as I said, I'm zooming in from Tampa, Florida, which is the ancestral lands of the Seminole and Tocobaga peoples. And I'm with Art2Action. I welcome she or they pronouns. And I have the honor and pleasure of serving with Golden Thread on the National Steering Committee for MedinaTheater, the MENA or Middle Eastern North African Theater Makers Alliance, which is a new and growing national network that we hope you will all connect with. So with that, I'll pass it first to Nabra to do a self-introduction.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Sahar and Golden Thread. I'm Nabra Nelson, she, her pronouns. I am zooming in from the land of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people, named after Duwamish chief Seattle. And I have been into, I don't know, I'm a big Golden Thread fan. I've been in touch with Golden Thread for a while since I attended Reorient, the festival and convening in 2019, I believe. And since then have been following y'all and in touch in a variety of ways, which has just been so enriching. I am a theater creator, director, playwright, administrator, teaching artist, all types of theater creation. I'm a founding company member of Dunya Productions, Seattle, which is what we'll be talking about today. And I'm from Nubia, Egypt, and California, currently in Seattle. I'm also the co-host of the podcast Kunafa and Shay on HowlRound Theater Commons. That is a MENA-focused theater podcast. And I'm also the Director of Arts Engagement at Seattle Rep, run their community engagement education programs, and lead the Nubian Foundation for Preserving a Cultural Heritage.
Thank you so much, Nabra. I forgot to mention in our self-descriptions to include a self-description just to make this more accessible. So I'll model that. I'm a light-skinned Arab American person. I identify as Lebanese American, and I have short black hair, and I'm wearing a black button-down collared shirt. And behind me is a really colorful painting by a local artist named Amina Khan that's in an Islamic pattern, and my office with some books and stuff on the shelf. So Nabra, would you like to also do a visual self-description and then pass it on, please?
Yes, thank you for that. I'm a lighter skinned brown woman with short brown hair, wearing some jewelry, a gray t-shirt, and behind me are a map of the world and a bookshelf with little cat statuettes. I'll pass it on to Rohina. Hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rohina Malik. I am the Artistic Director of MedinaTheater Collective. We are a brand new theater company dedicated to the SWANASA community. So we are not just SWANA, we are SWANASA, Southwest Asian, North African, and South Asian. I am South Asian. My family is from Pakistan, and I was born and raised in London, England. I am a playwright and screenwriter. Just finished my first screenplay, and hopefully, inshallah, God willing, it'll be produced in the summer of next year. So let's see with COVID if that works out, but inshallah. I am from Chicago. I live on stolen land, the land of the Kickapoo people. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. And visual description of the room, I'm in my office/bedroom, white walls, ceiling fan, and I am a brown-skinned woman that wears glasses, and I have a light orange colored headscarf and a black shirt, and I think I've covered everything.
Shadi?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Golden Thread, for having us here. This is amazing. And thank you for everyone who's listening and sharing their time with us. My name is Shadi Ghaheri, and I am an Iranian woman, born and raised in Tehran, Iran, and now an immigrant and a woman of color in America. I live in New York City, and right now I'm in Orange County visiting family and doing some work. So my land acknowledgement that I learned today about where I am today is called Tongwa, but I live in Lenape land, and that today is called Brooklyn. To tell you a little bit about myself, First, I'm a director and choreographer. Sometimes I write, sometimes I perform. I'm one of the co-founders of Peydah Theatre Company, which there are like 9 more people in it, and I'm just representative of one of the whole team. Everyone says hello, and I wish I can have everyone behind me because we are really a company. And let me see. My passion is theater. I will, until I'm alive, tell stories. And I tell stories about women that I know better, which have been living in Iran, have been living in a region that some of us call Middle East, and some are trying to call different names, such as Southwest Asia. I have so much to share. Did I say everything you asked me to? Okay.
Yes, I think that's great.
Description. I think I will say I am brown skin, petite woman that you don't see how petite I am yet. And I have a couple of braided hair on my right side, wearing an orange shirt. And I am in my brother's living room, have so little connection to it, but this is where I thought it's better to sit for just practical reasons. Hi, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for those wonderful self-descriptions. And we've begun to start hearing a little bit about the work that you do and the companies that you're not only with, but creating and building, which is really exciting about today's conversation, that we get to focus on, at the same time that we celebrate Golden Thread's 25th anniversary, get to focus on new, emerging, and upcoming and growing organizations and companies and artistic leaders like yourselves. So my first question that I'd like to offer, because this series is framed around artists who don't fit in a box, which I know is certainly true, has been true for me in my life in many ways, but I'm so curious about, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to not fit in a box? And maybe what boxes have you been trying to get out of or break down or deconstruct or get rid of altogether? What does this idea of not fitting in a box mean to you? Would anyone like to start?
I can start.
Thanks, Rohina.
So for me, I think when I think of not fitting in a box, when I started my playwriting career, the #1 produced playwrights were white men. And so my career began with like not fitting in a box. And then when the Dramatists Guild did a study of who's getting produced in the US, it was really eye-opening. It was information that we now had, like the research and the numbers to back up, that I had already known, which was that women were produced less, and then minority were produced even more or less. So it was really something for me as an artist to realize I don't fit the box, and I have to find a way to make my art and get my art on stage. And I think it's like this idea for me, when you say to not fit in a box, is like, think outside the box has always been my thing. And even with the pandemic, a lot of people like, oh my God, this is the worst time to start a theater company, but not for me, because I said, you know what, we're going to use Zoom. I love Zoom, and we're going to keep making art because there's so many important things that we need to discuss. So that's what it means to me.
Thank you so much for bringing up both the actual statistical reality of the field that we're trying to work in and the challenges that we're currently facing, which we're going to talk about more in a little bit. Nabra or Shadi, would you like to address what does it mean for you to not be in a box or not fit in one?
I think I'll take us back to like very beginning of just immigration. On any forum that I have filled to get to this country, there is not a box for me. And there is no wording for someone like me. So, and also when you're just like a person from a different country that's trying to come to America, you try so hard to fit and follow any like instruction. It says the options that are on the paper that I have to sign to get to this country. The option for me is to fill the box written white, because it says Caucasians are considered white. And if you're living in Middle East, you're Caucasian. Am I counted white, or do I have the privilege of white person in this country? Absolutely not. We all know that. Yes, there is no box yet designed for me to fit. And that has so many reasons, politically, financially, and identity politics of who we are. I happily do not want to fit in any of boxes that this country yet is trying to describe or identify for me. It is very hard, because if anyone wants to approach me to hire me, they have to figure out, where am I? None of the things work before you find your own box, like not even just for me, but any person in the industry of filmmaking and theater making. And there are boxes. If you want to go to like a person to direct such thing, you're just like agents and companies will look through these boxes to find us. But someone like me, and I'm talking just personal and from my own experience, I don't yet have anywhere that I fit. If there is, vaguely is any story that has to do with Middle East. And I will be honored to tell those stories, because those stories have not yet been told enough. But still, I devise, I choreograph, I dance myself, I write, I teach, and I can make a classical play like Shakespeare or Greeks wonderfully, and I can make a contemporary play. I can translate. I don't want to fit in anywhere, just one box, because I believe, like, you know, our jobs as like an artist are so vast and can be done in so many ways. And I want all of those options to exist for me for the rest of my life. But the problem, of course, is if you don't fit for a box for the industry, therefore you get hired less, and therefore you have to design and create your own journey more, which is lovely, but every day somehow I become poorer, and that's not fun. So we've got a lot to do.
Yes, thank you so much for that. You raised so many important points there. First of all, the government racial categories, which don't reflect not only don't reflect our lived experience in the United States, but also don't allow us to build power in the way that other identity-based groups can build power as a voting base in this country, right? For example, but also that you raised the way that racialization plays out in the industry and the arts field, especially theater and film. And I really think we could do a whole long conversation on the history of race in America and how it has informed representation in the media, and how we're still living with and navigating those very damaging histories in just trying to make a living in our own field. And I do think that it's what pushes so many of us to create our own companies. Because the field, the systems that we have to navigate are not built for us and don't acknowledge the totality of who we are. And so we wind up creating our own spaces. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next question, but I want to hear from Nabra. What does it mean to you to not fit in a box?
Yeah, I love that you brought up the box checking, Shadi, as well, because I think that's where I like first learned that I don't fit in a box as a mixed race woman. It's like always, still I'm always navigating which box to check when people give me surveys. So not fitting a box has always been my reality. I think that's the experience of a lot of mixed race people, that it's like, because even if we have the same ethnicities that we're mixed with, two different mixed race folks have completely different experiences. Thinking about even conversations I have about race and ethnicity with my brother, we have like completely different kind of experiences with that, even two people who grew up together. And so there's that, and then thinking about also SWANA and SWANA's identity. It's such a broad swath of identities that and yet there's still, in the United States, some type of idea or stereotype of what a SWANASA person is. And so again, all of us, it's a kind of an identity that I feel like most of us would feel like we don't fit in a box of whatever that box is, because there isn't really a box. It's very much fabricated as a overarching term to attempt to kind of have some type of idea of a region that is just far too broad and diverse to actually define. So I think a lot about my identities. Most of my identities are not visible, so I've always been trying to redefine the boxes people put in me. I constantly find myself misunderstood or seen as very different from how I see myself. And that really does translate into my art. I think my art, especially my writing, is about showing people that there is no box, breaking down these ideas of boxes. The more I, talk to people, the more I do being in community engagement. I work with so many different types of people that, like, the more I learn that there really is no box, and this idea of being able to categorize people or understand them in such simple terms is something that for some reason has been, I don't know, I don't know, it's a thing that's attractive to some people. I don't know, I guess it makes people comfortable, but it makes me uncomfortable. And I'd much rather live in a world where we are kind of approaching others as completely open, that you could be anything. That's like how I wish people would approach me, is that you could be absolutely anything, whether I think, I think one thing or I see one thing or another, this person could absolutely be anything. And that's how I try to approach others and try to kind of shift thinking of the folks that I'm creating art for.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that you named not only how, as mixed race people, which I consider myself to be too, not only how our different our experiences can be different even within one family, but that's also gendered, right? That's where intersectionality starts to happen. Is not only are we racialized in certain ways, but then that racialization is gendered. And in my case, for someone who identifies as queer as well as Arab American, in the popular imagination of the United States, that doesn't exist. Like, that's not even an identity that's possible, right? And I feel like so much of our time is spent going, no, actually, I exist, I'm here, I'm real. Like, let me tell you my story, which leads me to, this question about, so how did you decide or start to, maybe it wasn't even a decision, sometimes it just organically happens. How did you start to build your own companies or create your own theater, or how did you make that decision, first of all, to kind of step out of the box of the industry in which you are cast to fit a certain look and then read the lines that are given, but rather make that choice to create your own work and to build your own communities or collectives or groups? I'd love to hear about how you made that move, because I think it's such a big shift for so many artists to make. And how did you do it? And how are you? What are you doing with your group, and how are you growing? Anybody want to start?
I can go first.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Rohina.
So, it had been on my mind for a long time, just as the years were going by. The folks that are part of our collective at Medina are folks that I've been working with for over a decade. And it really is just a group of friends who are Southwest Asian or Middle Eastern, North African, South Asian, and we're friends and we collaborate all the time. And there's just such a great group of folks. And I think that group just shows the diversity of these regions. And it had always been on my mind to just start something, because so often I found myself going to so many institutions saying, you need to do a play about Palestine, you need to do a play about this or about that. And they just, listen, but never take any action to follow through. And I got to a point where I was just so tired of that. And I just thought, how long are we going to be waiting for folks to tell our stories? Let's just do it ourselves and see what happens. And, for me, what I had noticed that disturbed me was that, first of all, I've been, since I was a teenager, noticing Muslim portrayal on our media, Arab portrayal, Middle Eastern portrayal, just the whole community, always with this, things written by white folks where we are stereotyped and we are the villain, the terrorist, the bad guy. And I was so sick of that. So that played into me as a playwright, writing plays about the Muslim community. And that's how I started working with these folks who are now part of Medina. And, but still, because I was the playwright, I was not the one choosing. And the folks choosing sometimes don't want to even have a conversation. I was lucky to have a conversation sometimes with artistic directors. Many times they won't even meet with you. And I was just tired of that. So part of the reason I thought this would be great was we get to choose the plays. And one thing that really disturbed me was the fact that nobody could deny, if we look at productions that get pulled out of seasons and canceled, it tends to be plays about Palestine. And that just frickin' pissed me off. And then January 2020, my father died. February 2020, right before the pandemic, I went to Palestine. And it was with an interfaith group, Jewish, Muslim, Christian. We went as this group to just learn. And it was a life-changing trip. And I just came back with this like fire inside me, that because I'm very aware of how plays about Palestine get pulled out of seasons and canceled. And that silencing you see in academia, you see in so many ways of life in the US. So that was on my mind. Then the pandemic hit, we're stuck at home. And I just prayed on it, like just something in my heart, this feeling that I need to call my friends together and we just need to start a SWANA theater company. And even if it means Zoom, we'll do Zoom. If it means audio plays, we'll do audio plays, but let's make art together. And gave it a lot of thought, gave it a lot of prayer, and then just decided to move forward. And the great thing was that once I made that decision, everything just started to fall into place. And so far we've presented The Shroud Maker by Ahmed Massoud, who's from Gaza. And if you don't know this playwright, you need to know him. I read his play, The Shroud Maker, and I was just sobbing. I mean, it was just such a beautiful, powerful, painful piece of art. And when do we hear from folks from Gaza? It was just so important to me that this play gets up some way, shape, or form. And we got it up and we got vaccinated. We were able to go to a recording studio and we were able to bring in a filmmaker and film it and get really high quality audio and share that. And I now have this amazing recording of this play, which I want to hopefully partner with other theaters and get more audience members to see this performance. And we did it as a high quality staged reading. And I can't tell you the response from audiences. I mean, it's been amazing. So it doesn't always have to be full production. Sometimes we just can't afford to do that. We don't have much money. So again, we have to think outside the box. Going back to thinking outside of the box, how can we still do high quality? How can we still tell the stories? And working with Ahmed has been such a joy. And upcoming for us in October, he's flying to Chicago. Inshallah, God willing, if things are okay with Delta, we are partnering with International Voices Project, which chooses about 6 or 7 international playwrights and has a festival. And I had talked to them about the Shroud Maker and they said yes. And so he will represent Palestine. So that's upcoming. And we've worked with Hannah Khalil on her play Scenes from 73 Years, which is also again about the occupation of Palestine. She is an Irish Palestinian playwright, amazing woman. And we got to present her play through Zoom. And yes, we did it through Zoom, but Baltimore Theater Project partnered with us and folks from Baltimore got to see it. Folks from all over the world got to buy tickets and see that. So it's just been really great. And then other upcoming things, we're doing a play of mine with Broken Nose Theater called The Hijabis, about 3 hijabi women. And it's kind of my take on, if you know HBO's Girls, this is my version of Girls. So that's upcoming. And lots of things cooking,
Thank you, Rohina. It's so great to hear that you've got so much going on and that you're able to, despite the pandemic, be so creatively productive. And it's so inspiring that Palestine is at the center of your work and of birthing this new company or collective. It's really beautiful and courageous and important work. And I really appreciate hearing about it. Shadi, I know you were ready to say something also about What is it? What made you want to start this work, and why now?
Nabra, do you want to go first? Or yeah, okay, great. Peydah is a noun that comes from a verb being found, being visible. That is like really the core of how Peydah Theatre Company truly came up. It's just funny and unbelievably organic. I wrote a play, Tosca Tehran, when I was curating Immigrant Mixed Fest at Atlantic Theatre with Aryan Moayed and Sahim Ali. And that play has, all of the characters are just Iranian theater artists in Tehran. And I casted that show, that reading, obviously, with Iranian and Iranian American actors. And we became just 8 people who felt like, wait, what? Like we can't not continue. The thing was between us, and it felt like we just can't let it go. And I invited everyone to my tiny apartment. I made korma sabzi. I cook a lot, and I am a good cook, I will say that. Everyone came, we gathered. And I said, you all feel like we have to continue. I agree. And I have some options, some potential projects. Do you want to do this? And we just very organically continued as a company. We are now growing. We have 3 new members who joined us. So it is just like a beautiful company of people. As Nabra said, we are Iranian and Iranian Americans, but each one of us are so different in our like politics, in our understanding of this identity politics and our life experience. I came here 2012. Some of our members in the company have came after me. And some have like, you know, parents that are not Iranian and they can't even talk Farsi. So there's just like so a big variety of people in our group. And that's to me the beauty of us. We continue to find out who we are. We sat down for many hours to say, what is our mission? We sat down for many hours to say, what is our name? And our name came from just like, you know, these wordings we were talking about. And Hassan, one of our members, was like, wait, like, so what if we call it Peydah? And I was like, we were all like, yes. And so like the answers and everything came just really organically between all of us. And I will say more than anything, this is just like a home and affinity space to me personally. Like we every day are in conversation with each other. We devise a lot and we make things a lot together. We have some projects like, and we are figuring out as a company how to function constantly, because as Rohina said, there is no money, or it hasn't like somehow belonged to us yet. I will say, like when we're talking about troubles we have because of the skin I hold, because of the identity politics I hold, very clearly I'll say when I'm raising money, like and all different applications that we're using will flag us. We will tell like really like great donors and supporters we have that like, oh, suspicious. Why? Because we introduce ourselves Iranian and Iranian American. Because of the word Iran, things get stopped. Like everything that has to spend like a week or 2 to be approved, it will take months for us. And I have to sign like different like contracts, for example, that I'm not paying someone outside America, I'm not paying someone, blah, blah. And it's like just ridiculous, just embarrassing. It's just in your face xenophobia and racism. And it is not just how I am treated in a room by an artistic director. It is in detail of how we're gonna work that is making problems and conflicts. We right now have like, as Rohina said, and I'm like, yes, so I'm not crazy, we're not crazy. You have a bunch of like things you're cooking too. We do too. We have a complete play, Tosca Tehran, that potentially is a piece to go up on stage or in front of a camera. And we are working on it. And there are people who are really interested in that play. And I do believe in it, the story of Iranian artists in Iran that are trying to put Puccini's Tosca up, but right now it is impossible to tell a story such as that. It is impossible. They will not let us say that story in Iran right now. So they have got censored, and they are on a risk of like being arrested. We made, with collaboration members of Peydah, with Rattlestick Theater and New York Theater Salon, a festival of dance, music, and storytelling and kids show for Brooklyn, and we performed it in Prospect Park. It was a fabulous day, a big like gathering of like hundreds of people, and we are approaching that piece as a touring piece that we shall somehow shrink or expand, use a part. And I very intentionally devised that with my collaborators that way, because we know money says the first thing, and we couldn't always go that big. So now, then on September 25th, we're telling the stories in La Plaza in East Village, again, free for everyone. I personally believe we have to make art that is accessible for everyone. And I have a very huge criticism toward theater in America, because it is elite and it is for a specific class of this country, while I think it must be for every single person who wants to listen to a story. We have a lot of collaborators that are not Iranian and Iranian American, and we devise with them, we collaborate with them. We're big on collaboration, as you have heard that word a million times from my mouth today. I am starting to write a new piece named Lake Town with help of all other members of company, which is truly as symbolic world of present Iran and what is happening in that country. I think I have covered everything.
That's great. Thank you.
Can tell, but you can ask me questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting us know what's upcoming, both Shadi and Rohina. I just want to comment on what you're saying about money and how the work gets supported and funded in this country, and how it is it has systemic issues, systemic barriers, and also highly politicized ones. And I think it's really important that we're talking about that openly. I think that the field is in a moment of trying. Many funders and philanthropists in the field are trying to make change, and maybe not always understanding really how the systems work and impact our communities and our work. And so it's really important that we're talking about it and making that visible, and that we all work together to take those systemic barriers, dismantle those systemic barriers, so that work can be more equitably supported in our field, and also more accessible to more communities, as you were saying, Shadi. So I'm going to pass it to Nabra to talk about what made you want to start your own company or create your own work.
Yeah, well, the story of Peydah actually resonates with my experience with Dunya as well. Like, it was very natural and organic and family kind of feeling, I guess, oriented. So the idea for Dunya Productions, for a MENA-focused theater company in Seattle, came from one of our other founding company members, Hana Eidi, this amazing Palestinian playwright and director and actor. And he just started reaching out to different MENA folks he knew in town, theater artists and non-theater artists, like advocates and activists. And I learned that he was gathering folks through my friend and colleague, who's also Egyptian, who's like, you should go to this thing, I can't. I connected with Hannah, and he was like, come through. And so we all went to another company member Mana's house, and over like snacks in her living room, we talked about, putting together a theater company. And again, it just came out of like, it was so natural. It was just so like, yeah, of course. Let's do it. Like, we like each other. This is great. Some of us are strangers. Some of us know each other. I was like actually relatively new to Seattle, period. I had just moved in 2019, and it was like a a few months after I'd moved here. So, but it felt like, yes, this feels great. This is going to work. Yeah, so it really came out of, there isn't a lot of, SWANA, MENA focused, MENA plays in general produced in Seattle. And when they are produced, they're not really produced with community support or community collaboration. We're seeing a lot of white directors, or maybe only white directors, who are directing these plays by MENA playwrights, non-MENA creative teams. There isn't a lot of community engagement with the local community. So we wanted to see more of our stories, and we wanted to see it done right. And done in collaboration with us, and what we wanted to say. And again, also because most of these stories are produced by, again, obviously non-MENA companies, but also slightly, some usually larger companies. They also often fall into that trap of telling, telling our grief and telling our trauma for white audiences, instead of telling the stories that we want to tell for us and for our community and with our community. And so, and after, being at that first or one of the first convenings for Minatma, and having those conversations about the importance of these spaces for our community, and making art with and by and for our community, and knowing about Golden Thread, knowing about North Theater, knowing about Silk Road Rising already, I didn't even think about it. I was like, of course we're going to create a MENA-focused theater company, like naturally. Why doesn't this already exist? And so it really it's very much an ensemble. All of us are founding company members. Everything is done in collaboration with everyone. It's a very much like, kind of majority rules, but more like consensus-based decision making. We all just kind of agree and support each other, which is lovely. We did start right before COVID. Our kind of debut was a piece by one of our company members, Jenna Edie, which was a dance piece, beautiful dance piece she did with her father, Henna. And that we also had a reception where we had our debut to society in some way. And then COVID came, and we were like, we're just going to keep going. And like Rohina said, we were like, there's still so much to say right now. Like, we're not going to pause. And in fact, I think some incredible work came out of COVID. Our first Zoom play was Letters from Palestine in the Time of the Virus. And it was a verbatim piece that was really sourced from testimonies from Palestinians that folks in our company knew, and we compiled and put in an order, and then all of us company members read these testimonials of what was happening during COVID in Palestine. And it was so impactful because it was you learned about the occupation through its differences and similarities to quarantine, and really a fascinating, perspective on both COVID and the occupation. And then we did another Zoom piece called Loved Ones, Families of the Incarcerated. That was another verbatim piece by that kind of tied incarcerated Palestinian stories and the stories of their loved ones with the stories of African-American incarceration. And we held a panel discussion after that as well. And we collaborated with a local film organization as well as Seattle Rep to put on a screening of There Is a Field, which is a film by one of our company members, Jen Marlowe, that ties Palestinian liberation with African-American liberation as well, and brought, again, panelists from across those communities to talk about solidarity. And then what we're looking forward towards is in-person productions. We're like, okay, let's just shift focus. Let's do this. Let's commit. Let's start fundraising and everything. And our plans are getting ever so slowly pushed a little bit later. So hopefully we can actually really set in dates. But we'll be doing a living room touring production of my play, Nubian Stories, And then we'll be doing an in-person production of Hannah Edie and Ed Mast's play The Return, which is about also about Palestinian solidarity and what's happening there. So now working towards like figuring out a fundraiser. We have, what's interesting about our company is that we aren't all theater makers. There are advocates, there are fundraisers, there are just people who want to support in some way, and we really, all of us kind of lift each other. It's an incredible way to work. And now we're also finding our voice as advocates for the MENA community, as these critical artistic thinkers who can comment on what's happening locally, and put out statements and use social media to represent our community, because we're all from very different backgrounds. And so now we have an advocacy page on our website that shares a couple of open letters we've published about plays we needed to say something about. And now we're also finding collaboration and partnership with activist-based organizations here in Seattle who are purely doing activism. Now we are really finding our place in that world to be more than artists, but also really active advocates and representatives for our community.
Thank you so much. I love all the solidarity work that you're doing, and this model of like really working cross-sector and interdisciplinary, not just within the arts, but even beyond the arts, which is something that is also like close to my heart with Art2Action's work. So I really am excited to see that happening on the other coast. And so if you are just joining us or just tuning in, this is No Summary, Golden Threads live stream series of conversations with artists who don't fit in a box. And we're today talking about emerging SWANA theater companies and collectives across the US. And I wish we had so much more time together, because there's so much more to talk about. I'm going to invite folks, if you are watching a live stream or you're in the Zoom room and would like to post a question in the chat, you can definitely post a question and it'll get to me, and hopefully we'll get to work it in. So we invite questions anytime. And I have more questions, which I'll share while we're waiting to see what comes in. And I really invite for this last, 12 minutes or so that we have together to make this a conversation. So we'll try to keep our own individual responses short, and so that we can really have some response to each other. So you don't have to just respond to me, but to each other as well. So I'm curious, you've all mentioned in some way the pandemic and how it's affecting the work that you're able to do at this time, and how you're looking beyond the pandemic. And there's so much happening in the world. And I just wonder, you're trying to emerge and create something new in this extremely challenging historical moment, when there's so much to respond to and also so much to navigate in terms of how we're able to create our work, and what it is that we need to say in this historical moment. So I'm just wondering, how do you feel the historical moment that we're in is shaping your work right now and going forward? Anybody want to take that one? Shadi, go ahead.
I just think it's not separatable. Like, more than anything, just experience of this, like this events that happened and upside down our entire world. Like, it's not something that happened to one region or the other, but just we all went through this, and we are still going. And I don't know, like, if it's a very big question, and I will say, like, it just like made for me more clear that, like, nothing censored, nothing, no play, no game anymore. It is very clear what must be done, and it's very clear what must have been the priority of a person like me that is like an artist. I like spent all my life learning how to tell stories. I pay my rent with that. So it just has become way more clear that we are all in this big trouble, and the power dynamic of who has like less privilege or more privilege is not any simple thing. And I take it more serious to take my responsibility, my privilege, not granted, and also do the thing that I can with my small hands for the causes that I really care. Being it shifting from telling stories to education, being shifting like just forgetting everything and becoming a politician to change policies. I don't know what that is, but like, I think we are living in a world that emergent strategy and changing with the changes and being capable of being like water is a key, or at least to me, it feels the right thing to do to fix some of this.
Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing to me to hear your response, because I grew up in a generation in which I was constantly battling the perception that art and politics are different things, and political art is somehow lesser or bad art, or constantly having to fight for this idea that the art that we make is absolutely informed by the historical moment that we live in and the political conversations that we need to be having, or simply the crises that we're responding to. And so it's so refreshing to me to see, a new generation of theater companies where that isn't even a question anymore. It isn't even a debate. The question is, how are we going to make a difference with our work? Not whether or not we should. And I really, really appreciate that. We have a question. Feel free as we go forward to address that, but we also have another question in the chat that I'm going to share, which is how do you work with the idea of witness and memory? And do you feel any pressure to produce work that could be described as healing? Are you willing to make theater goers feel quote unquote uncomfortable in order to start conversations and reflection? I think I already know the answer to that is yes. But what about this question of witness and memory or healing in relation to all these other things that we're talking about the historical political moment that we're in? I think, Nabra, you were about to say something.
Yes, this is all tied. I love everything that's been said. One thing that I learned through COVID is how crucial our art is, and how much bigger the responsibility to make important, impactful art is. I was like, we need no more, wasting our breath. Every piece of art we make, everything we say as artists needs to be making change. It needs to be doing something for this world. So COVID, I think, has personally impassioned me in that world, and made me better contextualize my art and what art should be. And to answer the question in the chat, I feel personally some responsibility to create more healing or perhaps more celebratory art, especially about our communities, because we don't see that very much. And that balance between examining our struggles and our history and our current events, and providing space of celebration and healing is something that's constantly on my mind as a theater creator. But from the Dunya Productions perspective, we're very political, and we're not afraid to be political. And even in our mission statement is creating art that will inspire and impassion our audiences to engage with the global struggle for social and political justice. So it's in our mission to do that, and all of our work has been very specifically about that, and that's why we have panel discussions afterwards, so that we can after some of our productions, so that we can process with our audiences and give them practical tools to say, like, do this, go to this website, talk to this person, give to this cause. And it was a big conversation about this last letter that we penned about a local production that we felt was not helping at all the Palestinian struggle and for liberation. And that question of, like, how far do we go? How political do we get? How will this make people so uncomfortable, us kind of stepping outside of art and becoming advocates? that they won't want to see our art. And we decided, no, we have to do this. This is crucial. And I think COVID was also part of that, of finding that voice.
Thank you so much. Rohina, did you want to respond to either of these questions?
I think for me, COVID just at first was like, you know, traumatizing because I was constantly traveling with my art, and my life was airports and hotels and gigs, and to just have our whole industry shut down, I fell into depression. And it was working my way through that depression that just slowing down, and I'm not realizing how badly many of us artists needed to slow down and just take a breath and just be, I did a lot of walking in my neighborhood to help me get through my depression, because I was feeling awful at that time. I couldn't write, and I am a writer. That's what I do. And I could not create, I could not write, I could not work on so many of the scripts that were waiting, like folks were waiting for me to send drafts. And what I realized through that time for me, I realized a lot of things. I realized all this travel, all this stress from travel, we were able to do so much on Zoom. And I think that was very eye-opening for me as an artist. Like, well, let's say the pandemic ends. I don't think I want to go back to all that travel, because it actually wasn't good for my health as an artist. And so a lot of aha moments, a new way of making art that is just exciting. And I just discovered, you know, audio plays. Like I keep talking about like this new medium, it can reach folks. And I was very much stuck in live. It has to be live. It has to be live. And there is a beauty about live that no one can deny. But there is also power in watching something or listening to something. It's just a different medium. So I don't know, just the slowing down has been healing for me in a lot of ways, teaching me new ways to do things, teaching me that there are things that I'm not going to go back to after this pandemic is over. But of course I miss live, and I can't wait to do live again. But and as for memory, you know, like memory is just plays such a role in so much of the playwrights that we produce, their work, in my work as an artist. It's all about memory. And it's a powerful thing. And I'm just really excited for the future. I'm excited for these two amazing theater companies that I have gotten to know better today. So just feeling very grateful.
Thank you so much. I am so sorry that we have to say goodbye, because I feel like there's so many more questions I want to ask you, and it's really been so lovely to get to know about your work and your companies, and how you're navigating and looking to the future. And it's been really inspiring. Thank you so much for this time together. I want to thank Nabra, Shadi, and Rohina for being our panelists today, and of course, Golden Thread Productions for hosting the No Summary series, and HowlRound for live streaming. And please stay in touch with Golden Thread by signing up on the weekly email, or following on Facebook, or following all of these companies and artists on Facebook and social media. And we'd also like to thank Wendy Reyes, our live streaming technician, and Chris Steele for managing the live stream on Golden Thread's Facebook page. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. Please do stay connected and keep building and creating. Thank you all. Goodbye.
No.